technical difficulties, any questions, please just let us know. So let me just move forward here. Leticia, can you let me know once we are live?
Just one moment, okay?
Okay.
Tudo certo, né, Natália?
Okay, so hello everyone, namaste. Welcome to the CEO's Fórum India Brazil Agribusiness Edition. On behalf of the India Brazil Chamber of Commerce, I would like to thank you everyone for joining here today. So just briefing a little bit of the goal of this event. The objective of the CEO's Fórum India Brazil Agribusiness Edition is to give a spotlight to the opportunities to be explored in the bilateral relations between India and Brazil in such an important sector. So the event today is supported by the Embassy of Brazil in India, the Embassy of India in Brazil, Apex Brazil, PwC Brazil, and by the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, FICI. On behalf of IBCC, I thank our partners for the valuable and very important support. Thank you very much. Also, I would like to thank our sponsors, Bemisa, Unimar, Terra Brasil, and UPL. Thank you for believing in this initiative and for making it happen with us. Thank you very much. Moreover, I would like to also thank our speakers who will kindly help us to actually understand what are the future perspectives in the bilateral relations between India and Brazil in the agribusiness sector. So I would like, before we start, to acknowledge the participation of the following authorities and speakers. We're very proud and honored to count with the participation of Her Excellency Minister of Agriculture, Livestock and Supply of Brazil, Mrs. Teresa Cristina. Also, His Excellency Ambassador of Brazil to India, Mr. André Correia do Lago. His Excellency Ambassador of India to Brazil, Mr. Suresh K. Reddy. Also here with us, the Honorable Minister Counselor of the Embassy of Brazil in New Delhi, Mr. Elias Santos, Honorable Agriculture Attaché of the Embassy of Brazil in New Delhi, Mr. Dalci Bagolin, Honorable President of Apex Brazil, Mr. Sérgio Segovia. Also with us here today, Mr. Márcio Rodrigues, Manager of Agribusiness at Apex Brazil. Also joining us here today, Partner and Tax Consultancy Leader for Agribusiness Companies at PwC Brazil, Mrs. Ana Malvestio. Also joining us here today, Global CEO of UPL, Mr. Jai Shroff, and CEO of UPL Brazil, Mr. Fábio Torreta. Thank you all very much for contributing to this such important event. And before we actually start, I just would like to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Vice Consul of India in São Paulo, Mr. Suraj Mohan, Honorable Consul General of India in Rio de Janeiro and President of the India-Brazil Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Leonardo Ananda, and also Honorable Consul General of India, Honorable Honorary Consul General of India in Minas Gerais, Mr. Elson de Barros Gomes Jr.
Hello. Hello.
And just a quick reminder, if you have any technical issues or if you want to communicate to our team, the India-Brazil Chamber is at your disposal at the chat of the event, okay? So welcome everyone. And for our beginning, I would like to invite everyone to hear to Mr. Leonardo's welcome words. So Mr. Leonardo Ananda, President of the India-Brazil Chamber of Commerce and Honorary Consul General of India in Rio de Janeiro. So let's hear his speech. I'm sorry, I see we have a technical problem here. I will just take a moment.
Namaskar, bom dia aos brasileiros, boa tarde aos indianos. É com grande honra que iniciamos o Fórum de CEOs Índia-Brasil, edição Agronegócio. Primeiramente, gostaria de agradecer a presença de todos e cumprimentar especialmente, agradecer especialmente nossa convidada de honra, a ministra da Agricultura, senhora Tereza Cristina. Muito obrigado, ministra, por prestigiar o nosso Fórum de CEOs, edição Agronegócios. Queria fazer um agradecimento também muito especial aos nossos queridos embaixadores. Embaixador da Índia no Brasil, senhor Suresh Reddy, e embaixador do Brasil em Nova Delhi, André Aranha Corrêa do Lago. Sem dúvida, os principais responsáveis por Índia e Brasil estarem vivendo o seu melhor momento, um momento histórico dessa relação. Esses dois embaixadores realmente têm feito a diferença. Muito obrigado, queridos amigos embaixadores, por sempre apoiar as iniciativas da Câmara de Comércio Índia-Brasil. Gostaria de agradecer também a presença aqui do Adido Agrícola do Brasil, na Índia, senhor Dalci Bagolin, que também tem sido um importante parceiro dessa Câmara. Muito obrigado, Dalci, pela sua presença aqui hoje. Tenho certeza que você vai poder contribuir muito, com muitas informações importantes do setor de agronegócios e como a relação Índia-Brasil tem se fortalecido também nesse importante setor. Gostaria de agradecer também nossos queridos apoiadores, por iniciar com a Apex Brasil, na pessoa do seu presidente, Sérgio Segovia. Muito obrigado, Sérgio, por mais uma vez participar de um fórum de CEOs da Câmara de Comércio Índia-Brasil. Agradecer também nossa querida associada e parceira PwC, na pessoa da sócia da PwC no Brasil, Ana Malvescio. Muito obrigado, Ana, por nos apoiar e estar aqui hoje conosco. Assim como agradecer também nossos queridos patrocinadores, Bemisa, Unimar, Terra Brasil e UPL. E, claro, agradecer a presença de todos os nossos associados, parceiros e também membros do nosso Conselho Consultivo. Hoje teremos como painelistas aí 2 membros do nosso conselho. Um deles é o CEO da UPL Brasil, Fábio Torreta. Muito obrigado, Fábio. E o outro também é executivo da UPL, CEO global da UPL, Jai Shroff, que também é membro do nosso Conselho Consultivo na Índia. Muito obrigado pela presença aqui hoje. A Câmara de Comércio Índia-Brasil se orgulha em realizar mais um Fórum de CEOs. Começamos lá em 2009. Nosso primeiro Fórum de CEOs teve a ilustre presença do ministro da Economia, Paulo Guedes, que interagiu com grandes investidores indianos associados da Câmara. Depois começamos a desenvolver fóruns de CEOs setoriais. Já fizemos um voltado para Minas e Energia, com a presença do ministro Bento Albuquerque. Fizemos uma edição especial durante os BRICS, que a gente contou até com a presença do presidente da Apex, Sérgio Segovia, também com o presidente do Índia, e foi ali que eles iniciaram Depois tivemos um evento voltado também para a infraestrutura e tivemos um fórum especial muito importante também do setor farmacêutico, que é um setor também proeminente nessa relação bilateral. E estamos iniciando agora o ano de 2021. Esse é o nosso primeiro evento com o Fórum de CEOs do setor agrícola. É um setor de extrema relevância para essa relação. Sabemos que a Índia tem uma população de 1 bilhão e 400 milhões de habitantes, que também é um grande player mundial na produção de produtos agrícolas, e sabemos também que o Brasil se destaca no agronegócio, né, sendo um dos maiores fornecedores do mundo. Existe aí inúmeras oportunidades nessa relação. Eu não vou aqui me aprofundar muito, vou deixar para os especialistas, mas gostaria de destacar que, sem dúvida, é um dos principais setores dessa relação e que ainda precisa ser muito explorada, né? Estamos na pontinha do iceberg na relação Índia-Brasil e principalmente na relação Índia-Brasil neste importante setor do agronegócios. Mais uma vez, gostaria de agradecer a presença de todos e colocar a Câmara de Comércio Índia-Brasil sempre à disposição de todos vocês, de todas as empresas, para trabalharmos juntos no fortalecimento, no fomento dessa relação. Muito obrigado, espero que todos possam usufruir de um excelente evento. Namastê.
Perfeito. Dando continuidade, então, escutaremos agora o discurso de abertura da excelentíssima ministra Tereza Cristina.
Senhoras e senhores, ao cumprimentar as autoridades e todos os presentes, gostaria de agradecer à Câmara de Comércio Brasil-Índia pelo convite para participar deste importante seminário. Em janeiro do ano passado, tive a oportunidade de integrar a comitiva do presidente Jair Bolsonaro a Nova Delhi. Na ocasião, confirmaram-se minhas expectativas de que o relacionamento entre nossos dois países merece enorme atenção. Já trabalhamos em diversas frentes juntos. Temos, por exemplo, acordos firmados para intercâmbio de conhecimento na produção de lácteos. Mas podemos e queremos fazer mais ainda. O Brasil quer se firmar como um parceiro estratégico, confiável e de longo prazo, contribuindo para o desenvolvimento rural indiano. Nosso objetivo não é simplesmente competir, mas sim colaborar. Podemos cada vez mais complementar os esforços locais indianos, contribuindo para a sua segurança alimentar e energética, para a modernização do campo e para a geração de renda. Os esforços serão sinérgicos e construtivos, como aqueles que consolidados em outros setores estratégicos, como o de saúde e medicamentos. Neste contexto, a Aliança Brasil-Índia mostrou-se fundamental para enfrentarmos conjuntamente a pandemia da Covid-19. Em estreita parceria, certamente estaremos prontos para enfrentar quaisquer desafios futuros em benefício de nossas sociedades. E os desafios não serão pequenos. Estimativas apontam que até 2030 a Índia ultrapassará a China como o país mais populoso do mundo e que até 2050 o PIB do país, em termos de paridade de poder de compra, saltará de 7% para 15% do total mundial. O duplo crescimento de população e de renda ampliará enormemente a classe média urbana, que demandará cada vez mais alimentos e energias renováveis. Para atendê-la de forma sustentável, é indispensável fomentar a inovação. O Brasil é referência em tecnologia agrícola, o pioneiro em agricultura tropical, e o etanol é um excelente exemplo de como podemos colaborar. Contando com a experiência brasileira, a Índia poderá fomentar a produção desse biocombustível com impacto direto sobre a redução dos índices de poluição nas grandes cidades, o aumento da participação das energias renováveis em sua matriz e a redução da dependência da importação de petróleo. A destinação de parte da cana-de-açúcar plantada na Índia para a produção de etanol ajudará ainda a regular a oferta mundial de açúcar, proporcionando maior estabilidade de preços a essa commodity. Com o tempo, o aumento do consumo e da produção de etanol na Índia e em outros países ao redor do mundo contribuirá para o estabelecimento de um mercado global de biocombustíveis. Minha proposta é que nossos dois países sejam pilares neste novo comércio. No comércio de alimentos, há largo espaço para colaboração em tecnologias produtivas. O Brasil poderá contribuir ainda para melhorar a oferta de determinados produtos chaves no mercado consumidor indiano, como, por exemplo, feijão e pulses e proteína animal, particularmente a de aves. Estamos, assim, abertos e dispostos a fortalecer nosso diálogo bilateral para benefícios compartilhados. O evento de hoje é mais um passo importante nessa direção. Muito obrigada.
On behalf of the India-Brazil Chamber of Commerce, I thank once again Her Excellency Minister of Agriculture, Mrs. Teresa Cristina, for the interest and time dedicated to our event. Now, I invite everyone to listen to the message from His Excellency Ambassador of India to Brazil, Ambassador of Brazil to India, Mr. André Corrêa do Lago.
Hello, I'm André Corrêa do Lago. I'm the Brazilian ambassador to India, and I'm extremely happy to address this CEO's Forum, India-Brazil, that is being organized by the India-Brazil Chamber of Commerce of Rio, Belo Horizonte, with my dear friends Leonardo and Nelson. I want to thank you both for maintaining during this entire very difficult year of COVID 2020, many meetings, many discussions that have kept alive the wonderful relationship that we are expanding between our businesses. And I'm very happy that we have Apex in this event also, because Apex and Invest India have been together also extremely active since they signed the MOU in January 2020. So 2021 is the year in which we have to make sure that we advance in the objective that was very clearly shown by our leaders to double the trade between our countries. And agribusiness is an absolutely essential point, because both our countries are extraordinary producers of agriculture products, and both our countries can work together and not only in their production, in the number of products, but also in technology. And that's why when we talk about agribusiness, we're talking about technology, we're talking about trade, but we're talking also, most of all, about people. And this is an area in which India and Brazil have infinite space to grow. So thank you for participating in this event. Thank you for inviting me. And a very special thank you also to the Ambassador of India to Brazil, Suresh Reddy, who has been an extraordinary partner in all our efforts to have our countries together. So all the very best to all the participants and the speakers.
So now I would like to invite His Excellency Ambassador of India to Brazil, Mr. Suresh K. Reddy. Mr. Suresh, I will stop my screen so you can share your presentation.
Thank you. I would really like to thank you for inviting me to this event, and I'd like to thank especially Her Excellency the Minister for her kind address.
O embaixador agradece pela participação da ministra Teresa Cristina e a oportunidade de participar no evento.
I really welcome the message which she conveyed. Two important messages. One, that it's not an issue of competition, but it is a collaboration, because India shares certain challenges in which Brazil can be a wonderful partner.
E ele gostaria de ressaltar duas partes da fala da ministra especialmente. A primeira delas, a questão do que a ministra comentou, de que não é sobre a relação bilateral Índia-Brasil, não é sobre competição, e sim sobre colaboração. E a Índia pode ser um parceiro excelente para o Brasil em vários segmentos.
As she correctly observed, today when you are talking of 1.4 billion people, naturally the issue of food security becomes the most important issue.
E uma pequena correção é que em relação ao número de pessoas na Índia, a gente está falando de 1,4 bilhões de pessoas. And Ambassador, can you just repeat the end? And security?
Food security.
Food security.
Important element for India also.
E segurança alimentar é tópico de grande importância para a Índia também.
And I do believe Brazil has a potential to not only address the food security of India, but almost for half the world, if not more.
E ele acredita veementemente que o Brasil é capaz de ajudar a resolver o problema de segurança alimentar, não só na Índia, mas também como em provavelmente metade do mundo ou até mais.
In this regard, I was looking at exports from Brazil of pulses, which is about $50 million, while India was importing about 100 billion rupees, which is equivalent of about $20 billion.
Hoje, Ambassador, you mean the exports from Brazil to India, right? This number?
$7 million.
$100 billion.
$57 million.
$57 million. 57 milhões de dólares de exportações atuais de leguminosas, de pulses do Brasil para a Índia.
While we import more than 100 billion rupees worth of pulses every year.
In rupees, in dollars would be
100 billion rupees.
O que significa 100 milhões de rúpias, a moeda indiana.
Now, also the fact is that today, when you look at agriculture, it is becoming more high-tech, especially in India.
O fato é que quando olhamos hoje para a agricultura, está se conectando com a ideia de tecnologia, né? Alta tecnologia.
And today we already have more than 450 agri-tech startups.
E hoje nós temos mais de 450 startups do setor de agronegócio.
I would like to compliment the ambassador Andre in Delhi for connecting the agri-tech startups on both sides between Brazil and in India.
E ele gostaria de cumprimentar o embaixador do Brasil em Nova Delhi, senhor André Corrêa do Lago, pelo trabalho que está sendo feito de conectar startups do setor de agronegócio no Brasil e na Índia.
And I would like to share my screen now. I just want to make a very small presentation.
Please go ahead, Ambassador.
I did make it earlier to the cooperatives, but in case if some of you have seen it, I would request you to see it again.
Please go ahead, Ambassador.
Can you see my?
Not yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we can, yes.
Okay, you can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, basically, I'm just pointing out to you what is India.
Ambassador, I'm so sorry to interrupt. If you can just please put full screen, because it's cutting a little bit of the end of the screen. On presentation mode, I think we should be good.
In the presentation mode.
I think it's slideshow or at the end of the, there we go. Thank you very much.
Okay. This just to show some numbers about India. What I want you to see is in 2010, where India was, it was number 9. While in 2019, it became the 5th largest economy. I wanted to note the speed in which India is growing. We are talking of a $5 trillion economy. That is our $3 trillion today. But our target is a $5 trillion economy. And here the point is the youth, the age is 29 years old. So the partnerships which are forming are essentially the partnerships for the future. The brand building which you are going to do about your products in India is going to be brand building only once, because these are the youth and they are going to be continuing to use your products. Natalia?
I'm sorry, Ambassador. You can go ahead with English.
Thank you. Brazil is indeed the largest agricultural country, but India is not far behind. So I just thought I'll show some of the figures in India also. We are the largest producer for milk, pulses, spices, tea, jute, and second largest in many other items, including poultry and fish. Some of the ideas for cooperation, as I mentioned, the digital startups, and importantly in climate mitigation, and how we can use big data in agriculture Then similarly, I mentioned 450 agri-tech startups, including some of them are in the fintechs. And then, of course, IoT, Internet of Things, and how it is used in agriculture. And last and important one is water conservation. In fact, I'm happy to see a good friend, Mr. Moretti, here. And in fact, we've been discussing some of these issues quite actively. This is the position about startups in India, agri-tech startups. As you can see, out of the 450 startups, we already have 25 which have global presence. While almost 50% believe the next unicorn is going to be from this. And they're already attracting a healthy investment and growing at a rate of 25% per year. This is what I want you to see. The speed in which the middle class is growing in India. Now, that is where I believe the economic opportunity is there for the agricultural industry of Brazil. That this is where the consumption is growing, the youth are young, and so with some effort of brand building, you are looking at a market which is going to continue and which is going to grow, and grow quite rapidly. This is some of the poultry meat processing sector in India. It is growing now, it's almost $1 billion already, the market. And it is growing at 15% annual growth rate. I don't think you have many markets which are growing at 15% compounded annual growth rate. And so you can imagine with little bit of effort and investment, the amount of return which you would be getting. Today, even a stock market is not going to give that kind of returns. On ethanol, Her Excellency, the Minister was mentioning about the cooperation in biofuels and ethanol. I would like to really salute the engineers and the scientists of Brazil for the success in their biofuel program in promoting ethanol. Today, when we look at Sao Paulo, we are very impressed to see how little the pollution is there because of the consumption of ethanol. Almost at the rate of 25% plus, which is the fuel mix here. It's really very impressive. And we are hoping to learn and cooperate with Brazil in this sector. And we have changed our ethanol policy today. Since October last year, our policy has changed. And today we are encouraging all the sugar mills to convert the surplus sugar into ethanol. And we have also introduced an ethanol purchase agreement, which is a three-party agreement, an agreement between the sugar distillery, agreement with the oil buyer, the ethanol buyer, which is the oil companies, and then third is the bank, so with the banks. So now you have a tripartite agreement, which is making sure that financing is available for the distilleries to upgrade the technology. And as the numbers say, we are in need of ethanol, and I believe we are going to promote ethanol even more. We are looking at 3 billion liters, and with the support of Brazil, it is only going to go up, and we are creating a huge market. Because annually, I was checking some numbers. In 2018, India sold about 5 million vehicles, and this number is only growing. This number is growing as the middle class is growing. This is the number which you need to see. The pandemic has affected all of us. It has affected some of us more, some of us less, but everybody has been affected. And this is the latest number which IMF is showing. And as you can see, look at where the growth is. Is there any country which is coming close to India? This is India. Oh, sorry. We have the advanced economies, the US, Germany, France, etc. And then the emerging and Asia, which we have China, India, and ASEAN 5. When you look at the numbers here, of course, India was suffering from the pandemic, but then you look at the growth here. 22, it is a very healthy 6.8%, the highest of all the economies. This is why I'm saying that the growth in middle class is happening and will continue to happen. And we want the Brazilian companies to come and start selling their products in India. As I tell my Brazilian friends, when I find cheese from Denmark and cheese from Portugal in India, when I find wine from Argentina, and when I find, again, meat and poultry from other countries. So why not from Brazil? Why is it that we're not able to find Brazilian products in this huge 350 million market, which is there waiting for you? I want them to come. I want them to come and start selling in India. And I think now with this, I'm looking forward to hearing from the others. Thank you so much for inviting me here again.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you so much. I'll just ask for a moment here so we can go back to our presentation. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for sharing the perspective from the Indian side. I'm really sure that it was important for everyone to hear this here today. And now I'm going to ask Mr. Sergio Segovia, President of Apex, for his presentation. So, Mr. Sergio, please.
Thank you, Natalia. Actually, I don't have a presentation. I make just a speech. So, good morning and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I thank the kind invitation from the India-Brazil Chamber of Commerce, especially its president, Leonardo Ananda Gomes, to take part in this forum that grants me the opportunity to bring information about the Brazilian Trade and Investment Promotion Agency, Apex Brazil. My warmest greeting to Minister Teresa Cristina, with whom we have an important and strategic partnership in the international promotion of agribusiness. In addition, my special welcome to Ambassadors André Corrêa do Lago and Suresh Reddy. I begin my presentation by congratulating the Republic of India on the celebration of Republic Day 2 days ago. Apex Brazil celebrates this date with great deference, as we were honored to participate in the celebration of 2020 during the presidential visit, together with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Jair Bolsonaro. India and Brazil have more than 70 years of good diplomatic relations established in 1948, shortly after the independence of our sister nation. In the last 30 years, with the commercial opening of our economies, the bilateral political and economic relationship have grown with more effectiveness. And Apex Brazil has been even more attentive to the strengthening and deepening of trade relations between India and Brazil, considering the partnership in the context of BRICS, a platform for cooperation of growing importance for the generation of trade and investment opportunities. Historically, Brazil has established itself as a highly trustable business partner, able to meet the most varied market profiles and needs. Today, our economy offers countless trade and investment opportunities, which certainly allows us to strengthen our exchange and to closely work on an agenda of common interests. Apex Brazil is an agency with more than 2 decades of experience focused on export promotion, internationalization of Brazilian companies, and investment attraction. As a great partner of the productive sector and in permanent dialogue with private and government entities, Apex Brazil is at your service to support programs and initiatives seeking to advance and improving trade among our countries. Our fruitful partnership with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Itamaraty, has allowed for the full performance of such duties with the optimization of resources and many other direct benefits for the Brazilian productive sector. In 2020, the agency carried out more than 400 joint initiatives in 70 countries in coordination with the SECOMs, the trade promotion sectors at the Brazilian embassies and consulates, seeking the best use of resources and specialized labor. Within those activities, 17 had India as a key market. In addition to our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Apex Brazil also keeps a special dialogue with the Minister of Agriculture, Livestock and Food Supply, the MAPA, for the promotion of Brazilian agribusiness abroad. Together, we have implemented a series of international agendas for Brazilian agribusiness with the fundamental support of our agricultural attachés in all Brazilian embassies. In this matter, I make a special acknowledgement and recognition to our agricultural attaché in New Delhi, Mr. Dalci Bagolin, who grants us much support in several initiatives. Another great highlight and partner for the promotion of agriculture, Embrapa, the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, has been extremely important for the success of Apex Brazil's initiatives. Therefore, we have strengthened our network operation and implemented actions with more synergy and coordination. My greetings to Celso Moretti, President of Embrapa, who is also attending this meeting. The worthwhile partnerships with Itamaraty, MAPA, and Embrapa comprise almost our entire list of agribusiness deliverables, which includes trade fairs, trade missions, prospective missions, purchasing projects, seminars, and market studies. Speaking about our growing figures, the trade between India and Brazil in 2020 totaled $6.5 billion US, with Brazil exports worth 2.8 billion and imports from India account 3.9 billion. In this context, the exports supported by Apex Brazil comprise almost 40% of Brazilian trade with India last year. With such results, India naturally ranks among the main export destinations for the companies supported by the agency. Considering the trade sector projects conducted by Apex Brazil, currently more than 50, 7 have India as a priority market, including, for instance, the participation in major trade fairs such as Annapurna Food, which is specialized in food and in the food and beverage segment. In 2019, Apex Brazil organized the participation of Brazilian companies in this event with a turnover of over $100 million US. Results like this certainly motivate the agency's interest in increasing the exchange of knowledge about the Indian market. In 2021, as a way to expand the range of business opportunities and focus on guidance of our customers and partners, we plan the execution of 3 specific initiatives for the Indian market, which are in 2021, the 2021 edition of Annapurna Food, the India Food Importers Fórum, and an important online business roundtable between Brazilian and Indian companies. Together, all these opportunities will foster the commercial and cultural approach even further for companies in the food and beverage sector. I also like to highlight that as of this month of January 21, we have already held the Cotton Brazil Outlook in partnership with the Brazilian Association of Cotton Producers, ABRAPA. It happened in India on January 21st, last week, with the participation of Brazilian ambassador to New Delhi, representatives from local associations, and ABRAPA. This event, which took place in a webinar format, aimed to connect the cotton production sector with stakeholders in the Indian textile industry to discuss business, technology, sustainability, quality, and the traceability of Brazilian cotton. The effort that Apex Brazil dedicates to the promotion of exports is also directed to the internationalization of companies and the attraction of foreign investments. In recent years, Brazil has remained among the world's main and most strategic destination for foreign investments, evidencing the confidence of investors in Brazil's long-term potential. Without a doubt, the sustained levels of investments in Brazil show a clear recognition from the global community to a market with huge potential and to a government committed to strengthening the economy and focused on sustainable growth. Apex Brazil has always sought to contribute in this regard, maturing more and more programs and initiatives aimed at attracting investments. 32 projects were facilitated by Apex Brazil along 2020, account for $5.3 billion in investments announced by large foreign companies in Brazil. The agency has been resolute in mobilizing stakeholders, placing on the same table government and private initiative, trade associations, and TPOs, in a well-thought movement directed to effective valuation of our assets. One of the main endeavor fronts conducted by the agency in this direction involves the close partnership with Invest India, shared by my friend, Mr. Deepak Bagla. Together, we made possible the co-creation of a Brazilian platform within Invest India's website called International Bridge, focusing on the internationalization of technology-based companies. Moreover, the main convergence between the portfolio of the investment partnership program from the federal government of Brazil and the priority sectors of Apex Brazil is focused mainly in the segments of infrastructure, such as oil and gas, agribusiness, and renewable energies. Within the Indian investments made in Brazil, those in the sectors of energy, transmission, agricultural, pesticides, and heavy vehicle manufacturing stand out. In a way, all of them converge with the priority agenda with which, as I mentioned, involves infrastructure and agribusiness, among other work fronts. It's also important to mention that Brazil has further opportunities of great relevance in several areas, such as health and other strategic sectors on which the integrated performance of the Investment Partnership Program, Secretariat, and Apex Brazil improves our capacity to promptly assist investors. As far as we can strengthen ties, guided by the expansion of trade and a qualified flow of investments, our countries will increase their chance of enjoying the virtual cycle of economic growth, which will bring benefits to our people through the generation of jobs, increased income, and subsequent social gains. With this, I conclude my participation by reiterating the compromise of Apex Brazil to keep promoting sound and sustainable commercial relationships between Brazil and India. Keep in mind that Apex Brazil is at your service for any need you may have. Thank you very much. I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Sergio. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to invite Agricultural Attaché of the Embassy of Brazil in New Delhi, Mr. Dalcy Bagolin, for his presentation on the importance of the bilateral relationship between India and Brazil for agribusiness. So, Mr. Dalcy, please go ahead.
Good morning, good evening. I'd like to congratulate the Minister of Agriculture, Teresa Cristina, the Ambassador André Corrêa do Lago, the Ambassador Suresh Reddy, the President Segovia, the Consul Leonardo Ananda. I would like to thank the all kind words about our work. And I would like to thank the Brazilian and Indian Brazil Chamber of Commerce for inviting me for this prestigious event. I'm glad today to talk about the importance of the bilateral relationship between Brazil and India for agribusiness. Next one. Next, okay. In my presentation, I will try to explore some areas that can leverage the partnership between the both countries. These areas are the food and nutrition security, the India's exports, the Indian manufacturers, the Zebu genetic bovine, the ethanol as biofuel, the agri-startups, and the cooperation in agricultural research. The first and maybe the most important area is the food and nutrition security. Brazil and India has several differences but also several similarities. And one of them is the growth in the agriculture in the last years. In the last 50 years, both Brazil and India turned from a net importer of food to a very agricultural powers in the world. With the Green Revolution, India is now one of the biggest producers of rice, wheat, sugarcane, vegetables, and other products. With it, the government of India can provide to its population, especially to the neediest, a caloric diet that made it possible to India to overcome the famine of the past. Okay, but there are some discussions nowadays in India and the world about the change from the concept of food security to the nutrition security. Some data from the Indian National Sample Survey and the last year publication of the National Institute of Nutrition showed that the protein intake of the Indian population, both in urban and rural areas, both in vegetarian and non-vegetarian, is below the recommendations of the WTO. The main sources of protein in India are the pulses, the dairy products, the poultry and eggs, and indirectly the soybean that is used for animal feed. With the urbanization, the growth in the middle class, and the increase in the income, the demand for high-value products is increasing. So the consumption of dairy products and poultry, for example, is growing at a rate of 7% a year. But at the same time, the productivity, the yields per hectare of pulses and soybean in India are very low. It's less than 1,000 kilograms per hectare. So while India can work to increase the productivity of these crops, Brazil can be, in this meantime, Brazil can be an important supplier, an important and reliable supplier of protein. For example, Brazil can be a supplier, Brazil is already a supplier of pulses. For example, cowpea bean, Brazil is the most important external supplier. The exports of mung bean, kidney bean, matpi bean are increasing, and in the near future, Brazil can be an important supplier also of chickpeas. In terms of, please come back. In terms of animal protein, Brazil is the #1 producer and exporter of poultry, so Brazil can supply poultry and pork with affordable and quality animal protein. And also, Brazil is one of the biggest producers of soybean and exporter. So Brazil can supply soybean that will help the development of the internal poultry industry. Nowadays, it's not possible because the GMO restrictions, the genetic modified organisms policies of India, but it can change in the future. It can change the future. Please come back. The last one. Please come back. This slide. Oh, yes. Also, Brazil can be an important supplier of fruits and nuts. Brazil is already a supplier of apples. Apples is one important market for Brazil right now. And both fruits and nuts can be very important for a rich and healthy diet. So Brazil can be a partner of India, helping India to improve the nutrition of the food of this population, and also providing the food that the middle class is willing to buy. It's important to note also that India is an important supplier of spices to Brazil, also processed onions. And last year, Brazil exported rice to Brazil in a time that there was a shortage of rice in Brazil. India was one of the countries that supply this product to Brazil. Okay. The other two areas that is important to consider for the bilateral relationship is the India's exports and the Indian manufacturers. There are several areas where India imports, processes, and re-exports some products. For example, sesame. It was a product that had the market opened last year in January during the presidential visit. And Brazil exported $18 million in the last year. And almost all this sesame was processed and re-exported by the Indian companies. In the same way, Brazil is nowadays an exporter of raw sugar to India that's used to produce refined sugar and re-exported to other countries. Brazil is helping India to be competitive in the external market of the refined sugar, because the prices of sugar internally in India is very high, so it will not be possible to be competitive in this market. And India is one important exporter of spices, and black pepper is one of the important ingredients in this area. Brazil can contribute with these exports. Another area that Brazil participates in the economy of India is a supplier of raw material for Indian manufacturers. We know how it is important nowadays to generate jobs in India, and Brazil is providing thick wood that is used for the furniture industry, leather. India is an important player in the production of shoes and other leather products, and also cotton. Brazil can complement the Indian production of cotton with high quality product in the way that we can say in a general view that the Brazilian products are contributing to the Indian economy, and most importantly, generating jobs in India. The zebu bovine is very important for the historical relation between Brazil and India. Nowadays, 80% of the Brazilian cattle is zebu, is Indian breeds, and under the zebu genetic improvement program, Brazil achieved the high levels of milk yield, and now Brazil is able to export bulls, embryos, semen to India, and it will help the India to increase the productivity of milk, and in the way that can increase the income of the farmers. Brazil also has the state-of-art in technology for in vitro embryos, and it is an important area for cooperation in terms of technology. The presentation will be incomplete without to talk about ethanol. Brazil has been using ethanol for the last 40 years. So Brazil has a strong experience in this area. And the government of Brazil, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Mining and Energy, and also the private sector in Brazil, UNICA, the Brazilian Association of Sugar Mills, are making one effort to share this experience with India. The ethanol is very beneficial because it can improve the air quality in metro cities. It can decrease the imports of oil, and it can give flexibility to the mills, to the industry, to use the surplus of sugarcane. So we hope that India can get very soon the same benefits that Brazil is getting with the biofuel program. And we are very happy to see in the press nowadays the manifestation of the main stakeholders for both the private and public sector with full support for the ethanol program. So I think we are in the right path in this case. And one new area for cooperation between Brazil and India is the agri-tech startups. Brazil and India have a vibrant environment for innovation, and it has allowed to the emergence of several thousand new agri-tech startups. And the Embassy of Brazil in New Delhi has a program in partnership with Pulsa Krishi, the incubator of the Ministry of Agriculture in Brazil, for cross-incubation between the startups between Brazil and India. It's a very successful program, and we hope we can resume this program as soon as possible. That was interrupted because of the pandemic, that we can bring startups from India to Brazil and vice versa. And last but not least, the cooperation in agricultural research is another important area. Brazil has the recognized Embrapa, the public company for agricultural research. The Embrapa has a MOU with ICAR and the Department of Animal Husbandry in India. Both countries have tropical agriculture and have a lot to share. So it's an important area also for cooperation. So it was an overview. We tried to highlight some areas that can strengthen the bilateral relationship in agriculture between Brazil and India. So thank you for taking your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Dalcy, for your contribution. Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite, we have a little, there we go. Now I would like to invite Mrs. Ana Malvestio from PwC Brazil for her presentation. Mrs. Ana, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a big pleasure to be here with you today. I'd like to start to thank you, His Excellency, the President of the India-Brazil Chamber of Commerce, for inviting me to speak to this amazing forum, as well as to organize this. I'd like also to congratulate and to greet all the authorities in this forum. Thank you for having me as well and for the wonderful speeches. I'm really enjoying what I've been heard. I prepared my presentation to share with you key numbers of agribusiness in Brazil. And also I'd like to share about PwC Brazil, what we are doing in business. And we also would like to share about our India desk. So if you don't mind, please, Natalia, can you go to the first slide? Next one, please. Next one. Here, we have already discussed, but I think it's important to share the numbers. The importance of agribusiness in Brazil, it means that our GDP, 20%, 21% represents agribusiness sector. It's important to mention that those numbers represent the numbers from 2019. We are closing the new analysis for 2020, and soon I can share those numbers with you. Similar of the importance of agribusiness in GDP, we have the agribusiness employment importance for Brazil employment. it also represents almost 20%. We can go to the next slide, and we can see the importance of the exports. The agribusiness exports also results in positive trade balance to Brazil. Those numbers shows that in this slide we have 43% of the exports, agribusiness exports in 2019, but in 2020 we have already the numbers. It was published this week when we have 48% of agribusiness sector contributing to the positive trade balance of Brazil. So Brazil is the largest export of many agricultural products, as was mentioned: soybean, coffee, sugar, orange juice, meat, etc. On the right side of my slide, you can see the main destinations of Brazil agribusiness exports. You have China, European Union, United States, and based on the information we collect, India nowadays it's in 15th place. Next slide, please. This is also a very important information that I always like to share when we talk about agribusiness in Brazil, because our agribusiness is sustainable. We have many discussions about how sustainable is the agribusiness in Brazil, but it's important to share that 66.3% of all our total area represents native vegetation, and only 30.2% is the agricultural land. Is only 30% of our total area that was dedicated to agriculture and livestock production. This is really amazing numbers, and we have a legislation very strict regulating all the use of land in Brazil. We can move forward. This, I tried to summarize in just one slide what we can emphasize about the strengths and opportunities of agribusiness in Brazil. So many was already said in relation to the importance for balanced surplus. Brazil is world leader in many exports. We have a high productivity agribusiness. We have available land, water, soil, variety of biomes. We have low level of subsidies. We have Embrapa that was mentioned already, so this makes a big difference. We have a solid legislation that guarantees property and intellectual property. And we have strong and world leader multinationals that already prove that Brazil is a land of opportunities. And emphasize a little more about opportunities. We have that the importance that what we are discussing is because 90% of all the food from the world is going to come from developing countries. And Brazil and India, it's going to have a very strong role in this aspect. Brazil, until 2028, 29, can add around 10 million hectares for agriculture. And expansion, as I mentioned before, it's going to be mainly from natural pastures and degraded areas that is going to be converted in agricultural areas. The state of Maranhão, Piauí, Tocantins, Bahia is the last agricultural frontier land that we have in Brazil. The expansion is huge in those areas. It's amazing to see. New consumer market and trends, because we can see the mega trends We can see what is happening in the world. It's going to be much more faster due to the pandemic. So food habits is going to change, and we needed to be aware and ready to attend those demands. Consolidation of several agribusiness segments, it's really an opportunity for many investors. And as mentioned, every time I heard the number of India startups, 450 startups, it's really amazing. And Brazil is doing quite well as well. And I can imagine the interaction about those startups, what we can bring to these countries. Brazil and India has a lot to share. And besides of this, infrastructure, it's really a very important topic for Brazil agribusiness. And Brazil is nowadays running a very robust privatization program of roads, ports, model terminals that can make this cooperation between India and Brazil important as well. Next slide, please. I'd like to share that we understood the importance of agribusiness for Brazil since a very long time ago. We opened an office in Ribeirão Preto, where I am from. Ribeirão Preto, if we can translate, it's Black Stream. It's 300 kilometers city from São Paulo, countryside. And there we went to start helping our clients in sugarcane business to expand. And this is why we become very specialized in this sugarcane business. Sugar and ethanol, we start working with it since they were only individuals exploring, and we could follow all the process of foreign investors arriving from the sector. We started this Agribusiness Excellence Center in the same office of Ribeirão Preto because we could see that agribusiness, we have areas in south of Brazil, north with west of Brazil. We have all the state of São Paulo, Minas Gerais, and Mapitobá, as I mentioned, the new frontier land area. And we realized that it's really important to have the knowledge to attend the demands of the agribusiness. We needed to understand how to plant, how to grow, how to harvest. And this is what we started to develop a kind of intelligence center in Ribeirão Preto that provide us all the information to help our clients in very different challenges. We have people specialized in corporate advisor, tax consulting services, auditing, because it's very common. PwC is commonly associated to audit only, but nowadays we have a very strong advisory area, and agribusiness is one of the areas that we've been working very strongly. Next slide, please. We can see here, this is our cell of agronomists and economists that bring to us technical knowledge to provide services for agribusiness companies. And it's been very successful. And I can show you in the next slide, please, the results that this intelligence center have been producing. We have, since agribusiness is such a large sector with very strong differentiators, we needed to focus in different sectors. So we have industry analysis. When we go to poultry business, we needed to understand the weakness, the challenges of the sector, because this is really important to address a very good result, especially the taxation, because it's completely different by sector. We have for meat one taxation for PIS/COFINS that it's completely different from the other of soybean. So the incentives, and as you know, before we have our tax reform, it's really important to address the taxation, because sometimes the margins are very low, and the taxation, if you don't work strict in the taxation, you can lose all the profits paying taxes. So it's important to pay, but pay what should be paid in accordance with the law. To conclude, I'm going to show next slide the countries that PwC have been working, this Agribusiness Excellence Center have been worked with, different countries. So we are in the countryside of São Paulo, as I mentioned. You can see in the orange in the map. But all the names you can see is where we have been working together to provide and promote agribusiness in those countries and also in Brazil. And I'd like to invite also Mr. Manesh Verma. He is going to present what we have been doing strictly between India and Brazil. Please, Mr. Manesh Verma.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Madam Teresa Cristina, His Excellency Ambassador of Brazil to India, André Correa de Lago, His Excellency Ambassador of India to Brazil, Mr. Suresh Reddy. Good morning, my friends. And thanks for sharing all these thoughts today about how potential is Indian-Brazil relationship together for a common interest of agribusiness. As you know, and India and Brazil both are on the pathway to economy transform, which we have clearly seen this morning. The pro-business environment, it presents a host for a huge number of opportunity within India and Brazil. It is important, I think, it's to acknowledge that knowing the local market sentiments is the key for success for the Brazil as well as for the India. And here in PwC India desk, we are bringing the professionals from India as well as from Brazil together to work in a different sector and bridge this gap, knowing the local environment and local way of doing a business. India desk is created by in PwC is basically to focus the companies to help the companies who wants to explore and expand their business in India as well as in Brazil. Just to share with you, in the last quarter in 2020, we have been engaged by more than 3 or 4 companies, Indian companies, who really wanted to do a multi-million investment in Brazil. So, as a priority industry, agribusiness is definitely a priority for PwC. And as Anna has mentioned, that we have many studies which we have already published, and we will be happy to customize the studies based on the need regarding the food trust, food security, and food traceability. Not taking much time, I would like to lastly thanks to Mr. Leonardo Ananda giving the opportunity for the PwC for this common journey to promote the India and Brazil business. And thank you very much. We always look opportunity to work with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Anna and Mr. Manesh. And it is a pleasure for IBCC to be helping you with the Indian desk. It's a great project and definitely will contribute to foment business between the 2 countries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to invite everyone to listen to the message of Mr. Jai Shroff, Global CEO of UPL and also advisor of member of our advisory board.
Minister Christina, Ambassador Lago, Ambassador Reddy, distinguished guests, and other panelists. I'm very honored to be invited to speak at the Brazil Chamber CEO Forum. India and Brazil are building very, very strong partnerships, and the business ties between both the countries are growing at a very good pace. We at UPL are very honored to be one of the key players from India to be present in the Brazilian market. The future of the Brazilian trade, the food trade from Brazil to India is bright, and I believe that there is a tremendous amount of opportunities to increase business and trade relations between the two countries. At UPL, we are very proud of our achievements in our business endeavors in Brazil. Today, over the last 10 years, we have grown our business dramatically. We have had almost a 15x growth in our business, and we are very proud to share our success with you today. Going forward, UPL is committed to building a much stronger partnership with Brazil and to build manufacturing capabilities to make Brazil much more resilient in the agriculture business. We are committed to investing in bringing technology for manufacturing not only chemicals but also bioproducts. Brazilian government is very supportive of the biosolutions business, and so is India. Our Prime Minister has been already supporting the industry to move on the organic and biological solution side. I look forward to interacting with you in person once this challenge of COVID is behind us. At UPL and as the CEO from India, we wish every one of you good luck and the best wishes going forward. Thank you very much.
All right, now before we start our questions and answers session, I would like to invite Mr. Fábio Torreta, CEO of UPL Brazil, also member of the advisory board of IBCC and our moderator for the session today. Mr. Fábio, please go ahead.
Thank you, Natalia. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me for this important event for the several reasons that were mentioned before. For UPL, Brazil is the biggest and most important market in the world. We have $1.4 billion business here. UPL is the top 4 player and going to the 30th position. And what is more important, we are growing. We are planning to double this business in 2025. I think that is very good for India and good for Brazil. In my opinion, Brazil needs to diversify strategically its crop protection supply to mitigate future risks. And you know, India is ready to do a bigger role on this matter. As Anna said before, Brazil keep growing its agriculture. We can add easily more 30 million hectares without cutting one tree. And so in a growing agriculture supply, it's a challenge. Another key point to highlight or to emphasize is the UPL commitment with the high standards of ESG initiatives. We have been focused on the optimization of the synthetic products. We are the number 2 in biosolutions. Our field approach has been focused on implementation of good practices, traceability, and food certification. And so it's much more beyond the simple transactional way. And this year we start a new journey in turning each farmer a better carbon sequestration agent. And so we will do it in partnerships with co-ops and our big clients. And in regard to export to India, UPL has done a partnership with Embrapa, and we are developing new varieties of pulses, the varieties that have a huge market in India, and that could be very interesting for the Brazilian farmers, because it could be a 30 harvest in the same year, and so it's good for the revenue, and it's good for carbon sequestration. There is a lot of things to be done in terms of export, import. You can talk about orange juice, meat, cotton, soybean oil, digital technologies, ethanol. So I'm very excited with the opportunities. And I'm very happy that we are having this Ag Forum to take these opportunities, to materialize these opportunities. And so thank you for the minutes for sharing what we are doing here. Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fabio. And actually, before I pass the word back to you for your moderation during your Q&A session, I just would like to welcome to our Q&A session Mr. Alberto Bica, Coordinator of Agribusiness from Apex Brazil, representing Mr. Sergio Segovia. Also, Mr. Elias Santos, Minister Consular of the Embassy of Brazil in New Delhi, representing Ambassador André Correa do Lago. So, Fabio, you can please take the word back.
Okay, thank you very much. For me, it's a great pleasure to run this Q&A session. The idea is that we can intercalate the questions among the speakers, and so we can have a more dynamic around the table. There are a lot of good questions. I'd like to start with Dalcy. And the question, Dalcy, is if you manage to have with India the same flow of trade that we have with China, Brazil will be feeding half the population of the planet, said the Brazilian Minister of Economy, Paulo Guedes, in November 2020. With the India food habits changing and consider the quite recent opening of the Indian market for Brazilian poultry, do you believe we can have an increase in commercial opportunities in this specific segment? What are the challenges to be overcome? Please, Dr.
Well, thank you for this question. I can detail more what I have explained in the presentation. The Indian market for the poultry sector, for the animal protein sector in Brazil is very important, but we need to think it about in the medium time, not in the short time. So the imports of India right now is very low, is not significant the amount of poultry that India is importing from all the world, but the capacity of India continue to grow the internal production in the same level, in the same rate that the consumption is growing, we can imagine that in a few times, 3 years, 5 years, is difficult to give an exact time, where the India will reach the limit of the production because the scarcity of the soybean, meal, and maize, corn. So we need to be prepared to supply India, to help India to feed this population with animal protein, poultry, chicken, but we need to follow the time that India will be importing. Right now, the most important protein that Brazil can participate in the market is the pork meat. Several European countries are exporting pork meat to India, and Brazil is not participating in this market. And the same companies that in Brazil export pork also exports poultry. So it will be important to Brazil be part of this market of poultry, of pork, meat, to have a knowledge of the market, to get market intelligence. So we need to be prepared to supply India with chicken, with poultry in the future, but it is a medium time that will happen.
Thank you very much, Dalcy. You before highlighted this room, this opportunity in terms of high quality protein in India. And I think we are the best on animal protein, and so a huge opportunity for us, no doubt. I'd like now to address the Ambassador Suresh Reddy. The question, Ambassador, and by the way, Ambassador, I'm so jealous with the GDP projection that you showed, we shared with us and in 2021. Congratulations, it's amazing, amazing. But the question, let's go to the question. India is a major producer of technology, and in 2020, an agreement was signed between Embrapa and the Indian Institute, ICRISAT, for the development of technologies for the improvement of Indian and Brazilian agribusiness. What are the long-term expectations of this achievement? In your view, how could Brazil get access to the Indian technology in large scale, especially directly to the agribusiness sector?
Thank you. Thank you. Before I respond, I look at it as roughly 4 parts to your question. Number one is that thank you for your observations on the India's economic growth. I was looking at the numbers myself again as we were talking. And I should say I not only feel happy, but I'm even more convinced. Now the question is, why are these numbers looking good? Whether these numbers are believable and whether this would be realized. I think the answer to that is the India growth story is something which is led by the private sector. And it is the private sector which has succeeded through all the challenges before the reform process was initiated, after the reform process was initiated, and in spite of all the financial crisis, in spite of the Asian financial crisis, in spite of the global financial crisis, in spite of whatever be it, in spite of the pandemic, I think it is the Indian private sector which is going to lead the growth, the recovery, and that is why we are very confident. And that is what I am number one. Number two, I find the same private sector equally successful in Brazil also. And that is where I believe there's a lot of opportunities for us to and this also includes in the space of technology. And when we are talking of agri-techs, essentially we are talking of startups, we are talking of private sector. It is not government-led initiative. It is a government-supported initiative, of course. Government-supported initiative through policies, through some grants and assistance, but fundamentally it is a reflection of the entrepreneurial spirit of the private sector. And I believe there's a lot of scope for them to cooperate, and it is happening. And in this regard, again, I would like to compliment Mr. Dalcy and the embassy in Delhi and the team for having initiated this process. As correctly pointed out Mr. Sequoia, the president of Apex, we have also launched a startup bridge between India and Brazil, under which we are also connecting the startups from both sides. And this would help to populate the technology into different areas, including the field of agriculture. Now, the third element here is the cooperation with ICRISAT. Now, this is very critical for both of us because of the idea behind that cooperation is to address climate change related challenges. And that is a very important challenge for both our countries. I mean, what we are finding is increasingly abnormal weather patterns. We are finding rains are coming where there were no rains before. Today, we are finding water shortage where there was abundance of water. We are finding the Antarctica seems to be melting at a fastest rate than ever seen. So we are having a lot of challenges, and these challenges are only increasing. And today we do not have a choice but to collaborate and cooperate. And that is what these agreements are essentially targeting in terms of exchanging experiences. And as we say, the challenges are common, but we need to find homegrown solutions while also collaborating at an international level. And that is what we are trying to achieve here. We are trying to share our experiences and in the process also share the expertise which we have. And I've been interacting quite regularly with EMBRAPA. It's a wonderful organization filled with some outstanding scientists. And we look forward to strengthening our cooperation with them even more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. You know, I can give my testimony. When UPL did a big acquisition here in Brazil, we had in that time around, in a global way, around 50 different ERPs. And the UPL, with the Indian expertise, could do that in the half of the time and half of the money that was expected. It's unbelievable how we can gain with this kind of collaboration, no doubt. I'd like now to go to the Embassy of Brazil in New Delhi with Mr. Elias Santos, Minister Counselor. And there is a question for you. Brazil and India have similarities in their production, such as sugar and coffee. What are the difficulties in finding common interests between the two countries? Moreover, in regard to food export to India, what are the opportunities in short and in long term for Brazil?
Hello, and thank you again for being able to join or for being invited to participate in this session representing Ambassador Corrêa do Lago. To address your question, I think there's a unique feature in the trade between Brazil and India in that the size, the dimension of both markets allow us sometimes to have similar productive bases, and you mentioned here sugar and coffee, and at the same time have a complementary trade relationship. So sugar is a case in point. Both Brazil and India are important or are among the most important sugar producers in the world, and still Brazil is able to export sugar to India. So we can be at the same time competitors and also have the opportunity to and the potential to increase our trade flows in some products, and in particular in agriculture. It has been said before that India has a huge consumer market for agricultural products. So there is there are a number of opportunities for Brazilian exports of agricultural products to India. We have an ambitious target to meet. The president last year in the state visit to India and the Prime Minister of India have agreed to double the size of our trade by 2022. So we have an ambitious target to meet. And for that, of course, we'll have to have the challenge of reducing barriers in a number of products and sectors. So it won't be one or two products which will do or which will allow us to meet the targets. So we have the challenge. We'll work together. India and Brazil will work together to try to streamline regulatory procedures in the agricultural sector and to reduce barriers, to reduce tariffs, non-tariff barriers, in order to allow that to happen. We have some products, of course, in which we see big opportunities. Some of these have been mentioned today, pulses. We also are having a look at sectors like fresh fruits, almonds, nuts, and also other products. Poultry has been mentioned, and pork meat as well, I think has been mentioned by Dulcie before. and so on and so forth. I mean, other products as well. But yes, we aim to promote a kind of broad-based increase in trade, and that will require that we work together to work on those processes and on the issues which might represent some difficulty for increasing this trade. But we are doing that, and we're optimistic that we'll be able to increase our trade and to meet the target, this ambitious and worthy target of doubling our trade by 2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elias. I believe that it's so nice to know about this agenda, about that we have a clear target and priorities. I think that was missing in the past, and so nice to hear that. I believe that
yes, and if I might add, I mean, for increasing trade, it's important to diversify trade, to have, as I think it's a corollary of what I said before. Besides increasing and augmenting, sorry, I have a glitch here. Both leaders have also expressed this desire to diversify trade between the two countries, and in the case of Brazil, to diversify our exports to India, and this is important not only for the sectors, the specific sectors which are to benefit from this diversification, but also for this overall objective of doubling or increasing as much as possible our trade by 2022. Of course, we have with the pandemic this trade has in 2020 has decreased, and the trade has decreased across the world. But at least we'll do our best to increase as much as possible the bilateral trade between India and Brazil. And I'm sorry for this long intervention.
No. So nice. Thank you very much. I believe that Sagar would like to add some comments on that. Please, Sagar, go ahead. Are you on mute?
Yeah, Fabio, thanks a lot to give me the opportunity. I just want to extend the conversation just now on the opportunities from Brazil to India. And I would say that let's create another perspective that the difference between India and many other larger economy or the developed economy, that the agriculture production in terms of value in India is very high. It is already close to $450 billion. Next to China, it is India in terms of the value of agriculture. And it is ahead of Europe. It is ahead of even the United States. But I think the opportunity lies in India to focus on the food processing. And food processing is linked to the income level, the growing income level of the middle class. That's number one. And the changing diets. How do you change the diet in a country? You change the diet in the country by creating a product. And these products are created by diversifying, and which is basically the food processing. Now, this is one part. So therefore, if you want to look at India more as an opportunity for trading, like what is being done for China to create a replica, may not be an ideal solution for India. That's my observation. I have been to Brazil at least maybe 40 times in my career. And so I can do some connection between these two countries, that we need to be focusing on the food processing, which is less than 10% of the total food produced in India is only processed. So there is a huge opportunity. That's point number one. Point number two, that my suggestion would be for the Brazil also to consider to be an insider into India in terms of processing. And this you can only do if the Brazilian companies, the corporates, they understand the whole mechanism, the food habits, and you need to do a research. You need to do a broader research, maybe a sort of a syndicate research to be done on the basically food for India. I think even soybean, I think if you just want to export the soybean as a bean, it is trading and one should do it. I think that's one opportunity. But in addition to that, what can we do with soybean processing in India that fits into the existing diet of the Indians? That requires the research. So I don't want to go further on this, but I think we need to be looking a more deeper into inducing the opportunities rather only sharing the existing opportunities. Thank you, Fabio, once again.
Thank you very much, Saga, for the pragmatic view. I think you add a lot. Particularly, I love this idea because we can export more added value products. And we have here BR Food, we have here some big co-ops, and so it's a huge opportunity if you talk about processed food, and also to create some kind of collaboration and investments in India on this matter. And so very interesting. Thank you very much. So let's move on. I'd like to talk now to Alberto Bica from Apex. And the question is, in July 2020, Apex Brazil and Embrapa signed the cooperation agreements to engage in joint actions to promote Brazilian agribusiness abroad. Are those initiatives being developed already? First question. Second, what has been planned so far, and how can Indian companies interested in exploring opportunities in the Brazilian market benefit from those initiatives? Please, Alberto.
Hello, good morning and good afternoon to those in India and here in Brazil. As you know, Brazil is one of the world's leading producers in supply of food, fiber, and agro-energy. So we depend on this productive was gained through the technology with farmers and the entrepreneurship and the government. About 30 years ago, Brazil was not a leading producer. There were other countries like temperate climates, countries were the natural big producers. And the Brazilian government, through Embrapa, developed an innovative technological package for the Brazilian Cerrados region. That's allowed us to, in soil chemistry, physics, and new crops varieties, and a lot of crop management to achieve what we have today, what we have to this great agriculture and livestock production. We are working with Embrapa to prepare a working plan with for this year to the cooperation agreement that we signed last July. Our objective of this agreement was to promote Embrapa solutions to tropical agriculture in different countries. So Apex is open to the Indian companies that can reach our portfolio of service to reach the Brazilian market. We are not establishing any agenda to, it's not already. So we can support the Indians in this negotiation with other countries and in Brazilian markets also. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Alberto. And Natalia, may I have a time for one more questions to Anna from PwC?
Yes, Mr. Fabio, please go ahead.
Okay. Anna, an article on COVID-19 and the impacts on the Brazilian agribusiness was published recently by PwC, in which you mentioned there are 3 waves of responses to crisis. One is mobilization, stabilization, and strategy. At the moment, which of the 3 is the Brazilian market going to? How do you believe that Brazil and India can cooperate to overcome the impacts of COVID in the agribusiness sector?
Thank you very much, Fabio, for the opportunity to share my view in relation to this. First of all, it's important to emphasize that agribusiness do not feel any strong effects of the pandemic. The COVID-19 for Brazilian agribusiness show how powerful we are, because the numbers can show this. But my view is, of course, we went through the stabilization phase, went through the mobilization phase, but now I can see the companies, they are in strategy stage. They are planning their actions to reduce costs and to continue even stronger post-COVID-19 scenario. I can see a lot of companies doing mergers, acquisitions. We can see like SLC buying Terra Santa, Patria and Aqua Capital buying AgroLeaders, companies investing in agritechs. Those are examples that these are strategic plans for making those companies stronger post-COVID-19 scenario. We also can see companies going to expand their marketing, implementing governance, or entering the capital market like Jales Machado, AgroGalaxy, other companies capturing financial resources outside of Brazil, like São Martinho. So in other words, the companies, they are seeking the best position for the post-pandemic situation. Even we are now we are experiencing at this moment probably the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic. But it's important for the companies to do not neglect and stop putting efforts to develop and have a strategy to stabilize and mobilize all this situation. Companies in agribusiness, they have a wonderful asset that they know how to reduce costs, how to make the production more efficient. And this is exactly the point I believe Brazil and India can work together. How to feed the world, because Brazil and India have the mission to feed the world. And we need to understand that we need to make this in a sustainable way, in a very low cost. So this is my view, Fabio.
Thank you very much, and I agree with you. I think this kind of crisis will boost innovation, changes, and so there is this good part of the crisis. And by the way, to talk about COVID, I am a little bit concerned with the employees that work in plants linked with the agriculture sector. I do believe that these people, as we are in an essential good, should have a priority access to the vaccine, because we are talking about to ensure that we keep having food as we have seen, and that's so nice in these uncertainties that we have faced. Yeah. Okay. Natalia, I think we are done.
Yes, actually, we are already a little bit ahead of schedule. I just have one last question here. So thank you very much, Fabio, for the moderation. I would just, and also I would like to say sorry, to apologize to everyone because we cannot make all the questions. There are so many. I wish we could extend here for 2 hours. I think we would go for the 2 hours because it's so interesting. But we're gonna go now for the last question. I would like to call Mr. Janesh Kumar, CFO of Zydos Brazil, and member of the advisory board of the Inter-Brazil Chamber of Commerce. He has a question to direct. Mr. Janesh, please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for such a nice, informative session from all the participants and the presenters. So thank you very much. It was really good to know such a promising industry and the contribution which Brazil can make in that. As we already know and we saw in the presentation that agriculture business of Brazil is like 22% of GDP and around 48% of export. I would say 19% of employment also comes from there. So as far as government of Brazil is concerned, what I have observed and read is that a special priority has to be given to agriculture business in the government policies. So my question was that is the Brazil government thinking of or is giving any special priority to agriculture business in terms of agri-financing and insurance of the crops or insurance of the business, and also in export financing? So is government giving any special kind of privilege or has a special planning for these type of financing and insurance?
So if Mr. Elias or Mr. Dalcy could contribute to that question. I'm not sure if you can address that question, but if you can, please feel free to do so.
Yes, let me address. I cannot talk so much because I'm based in India. This is a topic that is regarding to the Ministry of Agriculture in Brazil. But yes, the Ministry of Agriculture has an insurance program, has a huge credit program, and the last year I started to work with green bonds that's connected with sustainability of agriculture and the credit. So, but I cannot talk so much more because I don't have all details about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would like to thank you everyone for participating. Thank you, Fabio, once again for the moderation. And so on behalf of the Inter-Brazil Chamber of Commerce, I would like to thank you once again, all the authorities that have joined us today, and the speakers, also the attendees that we have here today. I hope you have enjoyed the time. And for the questions that we didn't have the time to direct, please, you can direct to the Inter-Brazil Chamber of Commerce, and we can make the questions get to the people that they need to get to and look for the answers, okay? So thank you once again also for our sponsors, Bemisa, Unimar, UPL, and Terra Brasil. Thank you for helping us making it happen today. And I wish you all a great continuation of day and a good evening to India. Greetings from the Inter-Brazil Chamber of Commerce, and I hope to see you all very soon. I also make an invitation here to follow us on our social media to see the most updated news regarding the Inter-Brazil Chamber, the Inter-Brazil relations. The Inter-Brazil Chamber is at everyone's disposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Leonardo. Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Namaste.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Obrigado. Parabéns.
Parabéns, Leonardo.
Obrigado.
Obrigado, pessoal. Bom dia a todos aí.
Bom dia a todos.
Bom dia.
Até mais, prazer.
Bom dia.
Bom dia a todos no Brasil.
Beleza.